Vatican City was founded on February 11th, 1929. Italy is the headquarters of the Roman Catholic Church. It is home to the Pope and the wealth and culture of the Holy Roman Empire, including a treasure trove of priceless iconic art and architecture from ancient Roman sculptures, Renaissance frescoes to the Sistine Chapel, whose ceiling was famously painted by Michelangelo. Are you aware that both the Old and New Testaments we know today have been altered by Gnostics in Alexandria, Egypt, who corrupted the biblical scriptures? Are you aware of that? Did you know that as the Roman Empire was falling, Constantine became a Christian while still secretly worshiping the sun god Sol, also known as Baal? He issued the Edict of Milan ordering a tolerance for Christians. Constantine baptized his troops and presided as the first Summus Pontifex, the official title of the Pope. Roman Catholicism transferred occult Baal worship into an already corrupted Christianity, bearing a mixture of witchcraft, Judaism, paganism, and perverted Christianity. To stamp out the spiritual rebellion of Martin Luther and the Protestantism movement, Pope Paul III ordered the founding of the Order of the Jesuits as an intelligence network and secret militia of the Vatican. To this day, the Superior General of the Jesuits, the Black Pope, remember the Black nobility, the Black Pope, is the mysterious man behind the Pope. It is he who has the ultimate power in the Vatican. The Jesuits helped develop many cults, Freemasons, Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, Christian Science, and many others, to serve the interests of the Vatican. Did you know Pope Francis is a Jesuit? As Hitler rose to power, he made a deal with Cardinal Pacelli, the future Pope Pius XII, that had devastating consequences, as did the role of the judges, scientists, academics, who individually and collectively made deals with and took benefits from Hitler. The founder of the Lutheran Church, Martin Luther, was a virulent anti-Semite, much quoted by Hitler. In fact, the Nazis scheduled their Kristallnacht purge in honor of Martin Luther's birthday. In his 1543 book, On the Jews and Their Lies, Martin Luther described the Jews as a base, whoring people, that is, no people of God, and their boast of lineage, circumcision, and law must be accounted as filth. They are full of the devil's feces, which they wallow in like swine. The synagogue was a defiled bride, yes, an incorrigible whore and an evil slut. Wow. He argues that synagogues and schools should be set on fire and their prayer books destroyed, rabbis forbidden to preach, homes razed, and property and money confiscated. They should be shown no mercy or kindness, afforded no legal protection, and these poisonous, venomous, envenomed worms should be drafted into forced labor or expelled for all time. Now, what does this sound like to you? Doesn't this sound like Hitler just said, oh, you know what? I'm just going to do what the Catholic Church has been doing. I'm just going to do what Martin Luther liked to do. Isn't this interesting? It gets more interesting. Please, stay tuned. They should be shown no mercy or kindness, afforded no legal protection. He also seems to advocate their murder, writing, we are at fault in not slaying them. Catholics, though, shouldn't be too quick to point a finger at Luther's anti-Semitism because he didn't invent it. Like bigotry and racism, it was a learned behavior from the Roman Catholic Church in which he was raised, educated, and ordained as an Augustinian monk. Although he protested against many of the Catholic Church's beliefs and practices, one belief he embraced was the Catholic Church's contempt for the Jews. Here is a quote from A Moral Reckoning by Daniel Goldhagen on page 166, and I quote, in 1941, December, Protestant evangelist church leaders of several regions of Germany collectively issued an official proclamation that declared the Jews incapable of being saved by baptism, owing to their racial constitution to be responsible for the war and to be born enemies of the world and Germany. They therefore urge that the severest measures against the Jews be adopted and that they be banished from German lands. Would not the superlative, the severest measures encompass the death penalty? You bet. And with the context of the apocalyptic war with the Soviet Union and of the Germans' already ongoing extermination of Soviet Jewry, it could have meant only one thing. With these words, the Protestant church leadership of a good part of Germany, collectively as a corporate group, and with the authority of their offices, on their own initiative, implicitly endorsed the mass slaughter of Jews, or at least knew that many would understand them to be endorsing the annihilation, which amounts to the same. Of course, the Vatican remained neutral throughout World War II, but guess which American banks and companies funded the Nazis until the end and profited by Jewish slave labor? Did you know the Bush family are Nazis? Do you know that the Bavarian Brotherhood of Death, also known as the Thule Society or the Thule Society, and Skull and Bones are one and the same order, working for a new world order, including the order of the Jesuits and including the order of the Holy See? Do you know that the Skull and Bones member, Prescott Bush, George Bush's father, and G.W.'s grandfather, was censured for laundering Nazi money at the Union Bank in 1943? Did you know I.G. Farben and Rockefeller Standard Oil were partners throughout the rise of Hitler and during the entire Second World War? As you will see, many big American banks funded the Nazis and Hitler's rise to power. The planes that the Nazis flew couldn't be powered without the fuel additive supplied by Standard Oil throughout the war. It actually kept the war going 2 years longer by using concentration camp slave labor to make gasoline out of coal. This is what we're dealing with. In 1998, the BBC reported Barclays Bank had agreed to pay $3.6 million to Jews whose assets were seized from French branches of their British-based bank during World War II. Chase Manhattan Bank also acknowledged seizing about 100 accounts held by Jews in Paris during World War II. Recently unclassified reports from U.S. Treasury about the activities of Chase in Paris in the 1940s indicate that local branches worked in close collaboration with the German authorities in freezing Jewish assets. So, these banks, American banks as well, were seizing assets. The Daily News reported the same year the relationship between Chase and the Nazis apparently was so cozy that Carlos Niederman, the Chase branch chief in Paris, wrote his supervisors in Manhattan that the bank enjoyed very special esteem with top German officials and a rapid expansion of deposits, according to Newsweek. Niederman's letter was written in May 1942, 5 months after the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor and the U.S. also went to war with Germany. The BBC also reported in 1999 a French government commission investigation of the seizure of Jewish bank accounts during the Second World War says 5 American banks, Chase Manhattan Bank, J.P. Morgan, Guaranty Trust Company of New York, Bank of the City of New York, and American Express had taken part. This is the glue of the New World Order. This is what holds them all together, these banks and the central banks that they own and control. And this has been going on since the Federal Reserve Crime Syndicate and before that with the banking systems, but they finally really got control of the money supply. And Nathan Rothschild, as he had said, I care not who makes the laws so long as I can control the money. Whoever makes the money really controls the country. It doesn't matter who makes its laws. And that's very true, and that's what we're living under. It's an oligarchy, basically. We know these politicians are all corrupt criminals, all of them. I mean, no matter how you look at it, there's very few that are truly worth anything. Politicians are paid for puppets of these special interests to keep this system going. And it was no different during the war. And it's funny, it's the same characters from the collapse of the banking, isn't it? Same characters from the two. They create these crises and profit from them. They always know. In 9/11, they knew that to buy puts on the airlines so they could make billions. They knew about everything. They knew just how to shake the market and get what they want and move the agenda forward. Patriot Act, other treasonous acts. This is the New World Order. It is what we're dealing with. In 2004, George Bush's grandfather, George H.W. Bush's father, the late U.S. Senator Prescott Bush, was a director and shareholder of companies that profited from their involvement with the financing of Nazi Germany. The Guardian obtained confirmation from newly discovered files at the U.S. National Archives that a firm of which Prescott Bush was a director was involved with the financial architects of Nazism. His business dealings continued until his company assets were seized in 1942 under the Trading with the Enemy Act. The documents reveal that the firm he worked for, Brown Brothers Harriman, acted as a U.S. base for the German industrialist Fritz Thyssen, who helped finance Hitler in the 1930s before falling out with him at the end of the decade. The Guardian has seen evidence that shows Bush was the director of the New York-based Union Banking Corporation, UBC, that represented Thyssen's U.S. interests, and he continued to work for the bank after America entered the war. Bush was a founding member of the Union Banking Corporation. The bank was set up by Harriman and Bush's father-in-law to provide a U.S. bank for the Thyssens, Germany's most powerful industrial family. By the late 1930s, Brown Brothers Harriman, which claimed to be the world's largest private investment bank, and UBC, had bought and shipped millions of dollars of gold, fuel, steel, coal, and U.S. Treasury bonds to Germany, both feeding and financing Hitler's build-up for war. This is all on record. Between 1931 and 1933, UBC bought more than $8 million worth of gold, which $3 million was shipped abroad. According to documents seen by The Guardian, after the UBC was set up, it transferred $2 million to BBH, Brown Brothers Harriman, between 1924 and 1940, and the assets of UBC hovered around $3 million, dropped to $1 million on only a few occasions. UBC was caught red-handed operating an American shell company for the Thyssen family 8 months after America had entered the war, and that this bank had partly financed Hitler's rise to power. These same forces are pushing for a new world order today, a one-world government ruled from Jerusalem. Ben-Gurion, Israel's first prime minister, revealed much of this agenda and the creation of the Club of Rome's 10 Kingdoms to Look magazine. He also predicted the European Union and how everything is moving towards this world government. In an article, as I mentioned, from January 4th, 1962, and I quote, "Gradual democratization of the Soviet Union and the abolition of wars by 1987 is predicted by Israel Premier David Ben-Gurion in a statement published on the current issue of Look magazine, which carries the number of interviews on the world's outlook for 25 years from now. Mr. Ben-Gurion's statement reads, "The image of the world in 1987 is traced in my imagination. The Cold War will be a thing of the past. Internal pressure of the constantly growing intelligentsia in Russia for more freedom and the pressure of the masses for raising their living standards may lead to a gradual democratization of the Soviet Union." Absolutely happened. He was off by only a couple of years. The fall of the Soviet Union. He had it traced down almost to the year 87. And this is how they do it. They give you like 4 or 5 little pieces of true information and some couple of things that haven't quite come true yet. So listen to this one. Again, 1962. On the other hand, the increasing influence of the workers and farmers and the rising political importance of men of science, which is what's happening, may transform the United States into a welfare state with a planned economy, which has happened. Western and Eastern Europe will become a federation of autonomous states, having a socialist and democratic regime. Bingo. Where are we? With the exception of the USSR, as a federated Eurasian state, and all other continents will become united in a world alliance, at whose disposal will be an international police force. We're moving towards this, ladies and gentlemen. We have this United Nations program for the cities to go after violent extremists. We have some serious stuff festering here and dwelling, happening before our very eyes.